Okay, hey guys. I'm so it's very snowy out right now. You can't see that. And there's ice on my sidewalk, and we're out of salt. And also, so I want to get rid of that. At of course, 2 o'clock in the morning. Uh, Now, a lot of ways you could do that. I could take the map gas torch. I could do a lot of other things. But what I'm choosing to do is to go take some water that's been boiling on the wood stove, and also some ash from the wood stove. So everything I'm doing is carbon neutral for one, which I think is kind of cool. And when it takes some out, I'm just gonna film pouring it off, but it was spilling over. So that's how I boiled it. Okay. Take some of the boiling water, pour it on the ice to get rid of it, and then take some of the ash, and you're gonna pour that on top of it to hopefully absorb some of the water, any of the extra water that's left over, and to be something that will absorb more sunlight, and that will help keep it warm and melt it all. Hopefully. In worst case scenario, it will just be some fertilizer for the plants outside, unlike the salt, which will kill them. So, I'm gonna pause the video and go upstairs and and then I'll unpause. Okay, now we're outside. One thing I will quickly note, for record, this ash here is cold. It is not fresh from the fire. It has been outside for at least a few days. Do not, for the love of God, use fresh ash. 'Cause that's how you get a fire, and that's no good. Now, as you can tell, there's ice here. See what slides on it, and you can see it as ice. So, the hope is, I take some water to do an initial melt of it. I'm going to start on the patch, this water patch right here. Very carefully, I say as I pour boiling liquid outside from a used and broken thermos knockoff. Smells like tea. Didn't clean it very well. There you go. Big old cloud. It's 32 fluid ounces of water. And it seems to have melted all the ice. But I mean, that was kind of expected. It's boiling water. And that was not really a concern. What I now want to test is see if I take some ash and scoop it on there, what will it do? I also heard some people who use like a broom to move it off, but I'm not doing that because that sounded like more work and it will work. So, for the record, it's I believe about 25 Fahrenheit, so like -5 C right now, something like that. I think ash is it's free. Move some of that. And if you weren't using it for this, I would just be dumping it in a couple of months or years whenever our ash trash can fills up on some plants in the back. So the only real risk is that I'm going to have someone track ash everywhere, which isn't great, but whatever. Okay. Move that ash can out of the way. Now I have some ash on the little bit over here. I mean, what am I doing? I mean, right now it looks pretty, not sliding around or anything. And I mean, I'll have to wait to see if this water here ends up freezing in the ash. I don't know how well it will do that, if it does at all. There's enough ash here, if I remember correctly, ash should absorb water fairly aggressively, if I remember correctly, because it would be hygroscopic, if I remember my words. So it should be pulling water in, and then theoretically at least making ice that's easy to break or walk on. We'll see. This is all because no one wanted to drive to Home Depot. So I'm gonna go get the rest of the pot of water and see if I can pour the rest of it over there. Yeah. Oh, I'm back. For the record, the pot that I'm using is not one we ever use for food. It's the science pot, as we call it in the household. But I mean, just me, because no one's used it in years. But this is not ever used for food, so don't be concerned about me getting it dirty. It's for things where food shouldn't touch. Well, this is just water, but I also couldn't find an old kettle to put on the stove. I didn't really use an electric one because I felt that kind of ruined the point. Being eco-friendly and all. I'm gonna try this airs without any ash to see if the ash has that much of an effect. So I presume it will, because I presume this will freeze up in like an hour or so. That's the rest of this is less than 32 ounces worth, so I'd say total I probably poured 48 ounces of water. Ballpark. Keep this heat very well. Oh, good froze on it. Huh. Interesting. Anyway. Yeah, so now I'm gonna wait and actually I'm gonna get the infrared thermometer and see if I can read the temp of that stuff as for reference. Thermometer required. I want to quickly clarify what I mean by saying it's carbon neutral. Because of burning all wood that we have collected locally, it's reasonable to say there's minimal to no carbon impact over the course of about 30 or so years of that wood that's burning. There is some issue with the small particles. However, I would say that's not enough to be a huge concern. So that's just where I'm coming from that theory. Here's my little temperature gun. So let's see, this is point. First of all, let's point out just to see what temperature the thing's outside is. I think it's about -9°C. I think it's about what I said. No, I think it's maybe 5°C. Hold on, let's check the brick wall over here. Brick wall says 8.9. Wall of the garage, to be more precise. Wall of the house says -10. So insulation's working, but yeah. So now let's check. This is about probably less than 5 minutes after I added the ash. Or maybe about 5 minutes. So it's 7.4. That sounds wrong. Because this should already be frozen then, yeah? So this thing is reading -6.2°C, which is below the freezing point of water. All these numbers are in Celsius because numbers. Over here, it's also -9. Here's my hand for comparison. 17°C because it's not broken. Distance. measuring ground over here, which is the same ground. The same piece of ground, the same, stone tile garbage. It's negative 12 C-ish. I have slippery over here. So, I think it's not reading the water here. I think it's reading the stone below it. Because this should definitely be frozen if it was at negative 8C. But, I mean, it's a bit frozen, but it's not frozen right here. But I can say its frozen patch is getting worse. So the ash is definitely required. I'll look back over here again. This should be the ash temperature is fine because there's no IR emissivity, whatever magic to be concerned about. Let me just take off my glove and that's cold. Yeah, that's cold. It's not hot anymore, so it's definitely absorbing, releasing heat. And this stuff, try to reference. It's not as cold as snow yet. I know, scientific. Like, it's cold. That's not really helpful measurements, but I don't know what to tell you other than I don't really trust my IR thermometer with this data right now. I'm gonna pause the video again, give it like maybe 5 or so minutes. This reference right now, time is 2:20. So I'll be back, I don't know, around 2:25, 2:30ish. Actually, just a couple seconds later. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna I will wait, but the English, the stuff over here is definitely just gonna freeze over again, and that's no good at all. So I might be just gonna see. I'm gonna add just ash to it. Will this have an effect? Maybe. Maybe Elon Musk was right selling those flamethrower things. Sorry, not flamethrowers. So I think a lot of the theory with this is that it adds traction like sand and also will absorb more light, so get hotter in like the sunlight, which doesn't really help even with these crappy LED Christmas lights. I mean, they're right, but these don't emit enough power to melt ice, as you can tell by them still being covered in ice and such. So anyway, but I think at least see traction-wise how that changes will be interesting. Okay. Still about 2:20, so I'll be back in about 5 minutes. Okay, it is now 2:30-ish. If I can get the end frame. There you go. One thing I've noticed is it definitely does tracking on your shoes. Yeah. I don't know if tracking on the dog's paws, which is what probably actually matters. But it is tracking on your shoes, so keep that in mind. But now the test is walking across here. Fine over here. I mean, I know to walk on ice, but famous last words, but over here I would be slipping and falling and being hurt. But over here, I can do that. Like here, if I did that, I would be, going off the deep end. Just in temperature's sake, a bit more sciencey. Temperatures is boarding, so it's about 3C there. Or sorry, negative 3C there, which I think is interesting. Negative 5C here, where there's not as much water. Over here, -7C, but this was just ash, so that's not too surprising. And, well, the important detail is none of this is ice now. And just one quick verification. It says -4. Feels colder, which I would expect. Look how it's like weird dirt, honestly speaking. Like that's the consistency it has. Just like kind of soft, weird dirt. Like a really fine dirt, you know? Not like potting soil per se, but or wet, like really fine wet sand. Actually, yeah. If you've been to like the beach and you have like, the sand, you have the sand right at the ocean, which is almost like quicksand. I mean, not exactly quicksand, but like, really spongy if you dip into it. Then right after that, where the water isn't actively going over repeatedly, you have patch of sand there, which is like still kind of damp. This is kind of what that feels like. It's not like the fully dry sand. Actually, this stuff is a bit closer to like, not exactly dry sand, but kind of in the middle of those two. And this is the, like it was wet in the last hour, but it's not currently getting wet. Because tides and stuff, Yeah, so I'm thinking I'm gonna coat the rest of that in ash, and then I'm gonna see if anyone complains about it tomorrow. I'm gonna leave that rest of the sidewalk. You probably can't see this on camera, even though I moved to the wide lens. It does turn left here. There's a couple patches of ice there underneath like a bush, but I'm gonna leave those because I want to see how those change compared to this, and if it's interesting, or if it's an interesting note from someone in the house, or they ask me to, because like please help them people do this. Then I might eventually mention what happened with this, but chances are it's just gonna be, yeah, it's like pouring dirt or sand on it, but free sand instead of buying sand like a weirdo. So I'm gonna quickly pause and then pour ash over there, and then I'll show you that I pour the ash. I guess I don't know. I'm not good at this kind of stuff, man. This video is way too long, but gotta be complete, Okay. I busy dumped out the rest of the ash can. Loosen the tripod so I can get the phone out of here. Much quality, much wow. Okay, so this is where it is now. Meanwhile, this is the untreated stuff, quote unquote, where, this will kill my mom if she steps on it. But this will just make her happy that her floor's a bit dirty now. Ooh, it's a probably charcoal in here too. But yeah. If it's anything of note, I'll mention in future. If not, I don't know if I'd say I'd recommend this, but like, it seems to work. So, if you needed to, like, I don't think it's a horrible idea. I mean, now my Blundstones are a bit dirty, but they're work boots, steel toed and whatever. So, like, who really cares? I guess. Anyway, yeah, I'm trying to push my way to the side here, and it's not sliding, so that's something, I guess. Anyway, thanks, I guess, for watching 90 minutes of this garbage. Adios.